Welcome to the Pastor Podcast with Randy and Andy, where Sunday's sermon sparks Wednesday's conversation. Each week, they sit down to dive deeper, reflect thoughtfully, and wrestle with the themes of this week's message. Their goal is to explore faith more fully, ask the hard questions, and invite you into a dialogue that goes beyond the pulpit.
Welcome into the podcast, everyone. I'm Pastor Randy Moore.
And I'm Pastor Andy Payton.
And Pastor Andy, it's always good to sit down with you once a week like this. Not that it's the only time that we get together, but we do look forward to this, and it is a milestone day. Our podcast has been in existence for about 3 years now. In the very beginning, I'll never forget, and it's a very, very fond memory. In the beginning, it was the podcast consisted of me holding my iPhone and doing this back and forth.
Flip back and forth.
Right. And then we got the actual podcast equipment with the goal of last year adding video. We did that. Our goal this year is to add guests. And we really don't have room to add in-person guests. And so we are going to add today a guest via the magic of a, not Zoom, but a Zoom-like application, okay? And maybe we can name that once I learn it. I don't even know what it is. But before we bring in that guest, let's just sort of set the stage of where we've been this month, because we're in the season of Lent. We are actually in between the second and third Sundays in Lent. And if my math or my arithmetic is correct, we're recording on Tuesday. This is the 18th of 40 days of Lent. We're not even halfway through yet. It's a long season because you don't count the Sundays, right? So it's 40 days minus the Sundays, and we keep the Sundays separate because Sundays are always little Easters. And this was an unintended consequence. One of my folks in my Sunday school class uses that Sunday to break her fast. You know, she's fasting from something, I don't remember what it was, but then she goes ahead and does that thing on Sunday. Okay, I can go with that.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, with the Sunday being the break. And
right.
Someone else said something to me like that this year too, because I think they heard you say something
right.
about it, Randy. Like, oh, well, I guess I can have my Hershey bar on Sunday after worship or whatever it is that you've given up.
Well, it's one of the tricks of the Lenten season. We know the end of the story, right? Mm-hmm. And so because we know the end of the story, we're Easter people really every day of Lent. Every day of Lent, yeah. We're Easter people. And so one of the challenges of Lent is to sort of live our lives as if we did not know that Easter was coming, you know? And then we were preparing in the way to go closer and closer and closer and closer to God and each other until at the end it leads to new life.
Well, and the idea of fast, and we need to go on a rabbit trail, but if you really practice a fast for those 6 weeks of Lent, you know, as it's prescribed, it really is, it helps Easter to become more or less like a felt experience for you physically. Mm-hmm. Not just, okay, yeah, I know Jesus is risen from the dead, but if you've given up something and then all of a sudden you can receive it again, mm-hmm. There's a felt joy in that experience. I think there's much more to fasting than that, just to be clear, but there's something physical in the fasting, though, too. I'm just suggesting.
Yeah, so our theme this Lenten season in 2026 is 40 days to freedom. And so you decided to take a look at where 40 days occur in the Scripture, not only in the Old Testament, but also in the New Testament, and then build a sermon series around it. And then last week, you used the story of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, a story from the book of Numbers. And this is something I didn't even know until I became a serious student of the Bible. I thought the entire Exodus story from the time they left Egypt until the time they got to the Promised Land was in the book of Exodus. Mm-hmm. But that's only like a year or maybe two. And then the rest of that wandering is happening in the book of Numbers.
It's Numbers, yeah. It records all the different meandering that's happening and experiences they have. The spies go in. And, Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I think you opened a new window this Lenten season on what Lent means, because I've mentioned this before, and I mentioned it this Lenten season, that I've always liked your description of Lent as spring training for Christians, and I still do, and I'll still borrow that and steal that and use that because I think it is appropriate. But this year, your emphasis and our emphasis has been on this Lent as this in-between time, in between who we were and who we will become individually and collectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that because we are all in a process of formation, and our guest Ryan and I were talking about this.
He gave away the guest.
Yeah.
We'll say his last name.
Yeah, and we'll introduce him in a moment. But we're all in a season of formation and transition, not just in all aspects of our life. You know, there's some things coming to completion. There's other things that are just beginning. And it's just this constant evolution of life, if you will. And 40 is that kind of the biblical symbol of the experience of the in-between. You know, there's the world as I used to know it. There's the world as I'm going to know it. And then there's this in-between kind of wandering, like we're uncertain. We don't know yet what it's going to be. And that's much of life.
It is.
The image that's stuck with me the most throughout Lent so far this year has been Noah floating on the waters, wondering when this is going to end. Uh-huh. And I'm like, that's just life, right? Like you're floating on the waters of your life. You know, you're in this place of safety. Yeah, you're doing what you think is right, sure, but you just really don't know when's that new life going to appear. And I just think that's the spiritual posture, really. Yeah.
Well, we could go in deeper, and we're going to, but we know that Ryan Buxton is probably chomping at the bit to join in.
I can see him out of the corner of my eye on the screen. Yeah, he's ready.
He's ready to join the conversation. So let us introduce Ryan Buxton. Ryan is our youth director here at Methodist Temple. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey guys, yeah, this is an exciting day for me too. Be my first podcast today, but yeah, I'm Ryan Buxton and been the youth director here since about 2023, and excited to join you and jump into the conversation.
Well, I mean, I was curious. I mean, youth pastor, you know, you've been with us for a few years, but just tell us a little more about your journey, or tell everyone a little more about your journey, Ryan, about, I mean, you didn't start here at Methodist Temple. It's been kind of a, let me say, wilderness type of experience for you as you've wandered the path of God's calling.
Most certainly. Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about the 40s of the Bible, my own story kind of came to mind. And, you know, I grew up in the Methodist Church. You know, in fact, I think the Buxtons take up about 3 rows at Baker Chapel out at Begonia Springs, where Pastor Randy used to be the pastor. And so was familiar with the faith. I always considered myself, you know, a disciple of Jesus. But after college, I went to the University of Evansville, right across the street from Methodist Temple, for mechanical engineering. And after I graduated, moved up to the Detroit area, you know, where I was really pursuing my career, met my wife there, and things were really going great. No complaints at all. I mean, but what I began to realize is there was something missing. And that something missing was that I had not been to church regularly for quite some time. And it took me a while to realize that God-sized hole in my heart was needing to be filled, right? And what really brought it all to light for me was 2020 and 2021, that time frame during COVID. Everything that I was in hot pursuit of, you know, my career, you know, buying a house, you know, all of those upstart type things that I was really concerned about, all kind of slowed down a little bit once COVID hit. And I would say that that's the point when I really entered my 40 and began to really realize, you know, that focusing on God in my life had kind of taken a back seat for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, I love that. I mean, I haven't heard anybody put that language to COVID as a wilderness, but it was a wilderness for so many of us, and a wilderness that we emerged from with real growth.
Yes, no, I think so. It was a big time of growth for me. I began attending a church up in Columbus, Indiana, First Christian Church, and was actually baptized there in 2021, not long after. And I would say that really kicked off my discipleship journey, my hunger to know more about God. Had a great relationship with the pastor there at First Christian, and you know, he helped guide me through some next steps. And before I knew it, I was attending seminary classes at Gordon Conwell. It's a seminary out east. And it really wasn't about wanting to have a career change at that point in time. It was really just wanting to know more about God. And so it was a big time of growth for me, no doubt about it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, tell us then how you got to Methodist Temple.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was working remotely as an engineer and had the opportunity to get back closer to home. So Boonville, Indiana is home for me. And so the majority of my family is all in the Evansville kind of area, both my mom's side and my dad's side. And we took that opportunity to move back. And so we ended up on the west side of Evansville. Started looking for a church right away once we landed, and visited Methodist Temple, and was really just attracted to the atmosphere of the place. I mean, it was so unbelievably welcoming, and I also have to admit, I was looking for a great pastoral mentor at that period of time too. And Pastor Andy's sermons, as I shopped around online, really connected with me. And so we began attending fairly regularly, and it was just a couple months later, the announcement was made they were looking for a youth director. Mm-hmm. I let that announcement float for a few weeks, but I really felt the nudge.
You got in the ark and you floated, waiting. Yes,
you got it.
Yeah,
you got it. And then eventually, decided to align with that nudge and interviewed with the team at Methodist Temple and came on board. I think it was May of 2023. So I've been doing it for almost 3 years now.
Mm-hmm. That's a wonderful story of calling. And I just to press you a little bit on Ryan, like, it's not like God's voice was some big audible thing in the sky. It was more like you felt drawn to this path. It started with, I need to go back to church. And then it continued with, I'm going to make a commitment through baptism. And then it continued with, I need to learn more about God. I'm going to go to seminary. Then the door opened for the youth pastor job and the youth director job. And then it was just a kind of an attraction to it, maybe. Would that be fair?
Yeah, for sure. It was, I would describe it almost like a sense of longing, right? Yeah. It was something wasn't quite right. Mm-hmm. And I began, pursuing that longing, and it led me back to God.
Yeah.
And so no, it was not a Saul to Paul moment on the road to Damascus or something like that. It was more of a slow, gradual understanding in which I really feel like, everything that I'd been through in life, my culmination of experiences was really was coming to be, per se, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you become grateful for the entire experience of your life, and you see it all as gift. And then you begin to see that I can share this gift as like a means of saying yes to God, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that fast-paced discipleship race started for me, about 6 years ago. And I told the youth just this past week that if you would have asked me at that point in time, hey, or I would have never expected to be sitting, with a big group of youth teaching them about the Bible, 6 years ago. And so it's been a pretty amazing journey, and it's continuing. Right now, I'm on the path to ordination in the United Methodist Church, and so I'm just excited to keep those doors open and see where they lead.
I want to get your thoughts on Lent and the season that we're in, but first let's talk about kids and youth ministry. What is it? Put you on the spot to summarize the whole thing, briefly. But what is it that kids need most?
I think what kids are really looking for, and what youth are looking for today, especially in youth ministry, is authenticity. Mm-hmm. And Pastor Andy talked about that a little bit this past week in his sermon, but it's true. We are moving in youth ministry. I feel like we're moving from a time of it being more focused on entertainment to really being focused on deep biblical topics that are important to these kids. I mean, just like I went through a time of searching, we all go through that. And as middle schoolers and high schoolers, there are a lot of big changes that happen in those youth's lives. And so being able to ground themselves in God's truth and God's love and being authentic about that is very important.
Yeah. And you're seeing that growth. We talked about it in the beginning. You can, in real time, see that happen during that course of that, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years you have them.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's to watch
amazing.
The transformation of the youth group at Methodist Temple under Ryan's leadership, the passion for Christ, their passion for spiritual formation, for God it's inspiring. That's one of the things I've noticed when churches really take off and begin to grow. It usually starts with the energy of the young people, the energy of the youth, which becomes kind of like a spark that ignites the rest of it. And yeah, Ryan's done a great job with that. Yeah.
It's been an absolute privilege to be able to see these youth grow in their faith and how it's impacted their lives. I'm just such a lucky person to have a front row seat to that transformation.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're going to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit in terms of where you're going in the future, but do you see yourself staying with youth ministry or becoming a pastor or becoming an educator? Have you thought about that, and is it going in any particular direction?
I have thought a lot about it, and I would say that my answer right now is that I want to continue to stay open to the need. Whatever that need may look like, I want to position myself in a way to where I'm able to have a conversation about what that need is and how I can react to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember when we have to have an interview for a candidate when they decide to go into ministry in the United Methodist Church. And so the board will meet and we'll have to talk and ask questions. And at some point you got asked the question, why ordination? Why do you want to go into this process? And Ryan's response, it was so moving. He said, well, I figure it will empower me to be able to share God's love with more people.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I don't think there was a dry. Most of the time at board meetings, there's not tears shed.
Right.
And the Holy Spirit doesn't wash through, but it did in that night. And because that's what church is, right? It's about nurturing the calling and nurturing the sense of God's love and presence. And we were seeing ourselves as participating in enabling him to do that. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I've just been so grateful for, the support that Methodist Temple and the congregation and you and Pastor Randy and the rest of the staff have provided through this whole process. It's been pretty awesome.
It's great to have you, Ryan. Okay, let's let you jump in on this conversation here. We're talking about Lent, and we'll start with something that you mentioned about COVID being a wilderness time for you. I think we can almost make the statement that there is no transformation without the wilderness experience.
well, no. It's a natural human experience. Like here's a way to think about it. There's order. There's seasons of order in our life. There's seasons of disorder in our life, and then we reorder again. And I forget where I heard that, but I've heard it somewhere. It's not from me necessarily, but
I think it's Richard Rohr.
Is it Richard Rohr? Yeah, it probably is. It's either Richard Rohr or John Wesley.
He had it mixed up.
And so like Egypt was like order. It was pretty clear what they were up to. And then the wilderness was disorder. They left and they had to relearn to live again. And then there's the reorder of the promised land. And so that's always happening though.
Uh-huh.
You lose a job. Right. There's disorder. You lose a family member. There's disorder. And then there's a season of wondering. And then you come out of that different and learn to live again. And just that's a constant movement of God's presence, constant movement of life circling within us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ryan had a great question. Do we ever really get out of the wilderness? Was your question, Ryan? I think.
Yeah. As I was thinking about the wilderness as being an in-between time, as I was listening to your sermon, the question that comes to mind for me is, well, do we ever get out of the in-between time?
Yeah. Yes and no. I think we come out in some ways and then we enter again in others, like even moving into the promised land, the promised land is not going to just last forever. There's going to be this moment where something happens, something changes, and you got to to learn to live again all over. Yeah.
Fear has been a big word for you the last couple of weeks, and like a fear to freedom kind of a movement. I think that is something that does happen in the wilderness, that we either let fear paralyze us and then we don't have any more movement at all,
Right.
or we work through that fear to freedom, even though if we move on out of the wilderness, another wilderness might come down the road. But if to the extent that we can handle that fear and get over it.
Yes. And I was saying, like, in our pre-podcast conversation, that one of the things I kind of wish I developed more in the sermon was, I don't know as to whether the voice of fear ever completely goes away. I think, like I was saying, before in our conversation, there's a certain element of fear and anxiety that's healthy and good. It's not all bad. But when we're talking about moving from fear to a sense of trust and faith, what we're saying is we're learning to move beyond that, and we're not frozen in the fear anymore. And certainly that's easier said than done, because fear yields itself in so many ways within our lives.
The two of you are still raising children, and to me, looking at you guys and looking at other people of your age, wow, I would be very fearful raising children. Right now there's just so much out there that
Right.
you have to prepare them for and protect them against. And then you take on that role as well, not only as a parent, Ryan, but as a youth leader. Wow, the things that get thrown their way. It's frightening.
Yeah, and
It is.
yeah. Well, what Ryan was talking about, when you ask him what did the youth most need, one of the ideas that popped in my head as you were talking, Ryan, is like, some people have described like the youth right now going through a crisis of meaning. Like, what do I do? How do I turn? What's the playbook? What Ryan's helping the kids learn, the young people learn, is like, well, here's the path. And that helps you navigate fear, really. That's one of the challenges that's happened in our world today, because folks are not as religious as they used to be. Some of the old stories we used to tell aren't as powerful as they used to be. In a culture and society that loses a sense of religion and loses a sense of the common narrative and story, you lose a sense of, here's how I live. This is what I do. And really, that's what the religious tradition's providing us with in some ways, is like, well, here's some guardrails, and here's some ways to live, things to do. And you don't have to just completely be in the dark, so to speak. That's what I love about the wisdom of the Bible and Christian tradition, is like, I'm joining this whole community they've lived a long time, and I can glean wisdom in terms of how to live well. So.
Yeah, and I think that's truly being sought after right now by this generation of youth. From my personal experience, I don't think they're quite as susceptible to the things that we think that maybe that they are. The things that perhaps we're fearful of. I don't see that response out of them. I don't. It's like they've grown up with it. They're maybe more familiar with some of that than we are, and they've learned how to do with or without it.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell us some of the things the youth group's been up to lately.
Sure. Yeah. So just a couple weeks ago, we went on our big winter retreat, and so that was a lot of fun. We went and we visited the French Lick area, and had some ice cream there, and really enjoyed our time. And then we went up and went tubing at Paoli Peaks. So that was a great time too. A whole lot of fun. And then we ended up spending the night at Santa Claus Campground at their We Like It Lodge is what it's called, which is an excellent facility, and had time around the campfire and time for devotion and some great conversation. There's a lot of spiritual growth that happens on trips like those. And once again, I was just so lucky to be able to see all that taking place. So
they're being influenced and they're influencing. It makes me think about, I'm getting ready for another visit into the prison at Branchville through the Kairos Prison Ministry. And those men, just a handful of them that spend those 3.5 days with us, go back into their dorms with the chance of having an influence on the other inmates who might never even want to experience the Kairos experience. Now, that's a more intense example of what I'm talking about, but your kids are going back in as influencers to the rest of the kids their age.
They are, and one quick story that I'll share from the retreat, and I won't mention any names, but at the very end of the retreat, when we were getting ready to get packed up to leave, we had a moment where we broke up into small groups, and we were doing devotions. I had a book of devotions that they could choose which one they wanted to study, and all the groups split up. And I'm worried about getting the place picked up and ready to leave. And so I'm sweeping, cleaning up, packing bags, getting the trailer loaded, and not really focused on that small group moment. And I walked downstairs, and there was a group of middle school and high school boys. And I was sweeping the floors, and I could overhear some of their conversation. And it stopped me because it was a very deep, meaningful conversation. And I left the room and came back, and I stopped them. I said, "Hey guys," I said, it's time to get loaded up. It's time to pack our bags and head back. The bishop was preaching at Methodist Temple, so we had a schedule to meet. And one of the individuals, one of our high school boys, he stopped the group from getting up. And he said, hold on a second. He said, "We need to close out in prayer." And I walked away and overheard that prayer, and it was beautiful. It really was. And so you're right. They're able to fill their cup up, during these retreats, and then be able to take that back out and influence others at the same time. So,
yeah. Right. That's encouraging. That's really, really hopeful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
No problem.
Yeah.
All right. I think
I can ask Ryan questions.
We're not getting any time cues from Maggie, our producer director.
Well, we talk forever. Yeah.
Okay. Last question goes to Pastor Andy. Here we go.
Well, I mean, the season of Lent in some ways is about preparing ourselves to see the new life of Easter. I guess I'll let you answer this question a couple different ways. What's one area that you're longing for new life to come, or what's one way that you've noticed new life, whether it's your spiritual life at personal or the youth group? Where are you searching for Easter right now, Ryan?
I would say that maybe if I were to change that question around a little bit, I am in my own in-between, I would say, at the moment, because, I work full-time as an engineer. I'm blessed to have that wonderful job, that wonderful opportunity. But I'm also attending seminary classes, and I'm the youth director here. And I really love everything about ministry. And so my Easter, or perhaps direction out of the in-between, would really be understanding what's next. Does my in-between continue down this path that I'm at now, or does it grow into something different? So that's the Easter that I'm looking forward to.
That's exciting.
Yeah, you're struggling.
It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. You're struggling in a kind of a different way than I experienced it, but the whole bivocational thing. And I never left my television work for full-time ministry. I did them both. And lots of men and women do that. But lots of men and women, they become second career as ministers. And so that question's still open to you. And it's not an easy one to answer. It really isn't. It takes a lot of discernment and time and thought. But we trust that you'll make the right decision, Ryan. We're just happy that we have Ryan Buxton here on our staff at Methodist Temple during this time.
Very, very blessed.
Oh, I feel very blessed by it too.
Okay, Ryan. Hey, how was that? Not too bad, huh?
Thanks for zooming in with us. It's exciting.
Not bad. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Good.
The first of many guests.
It's his first podcast.
And his first podcast.
We got to participate.
That's right.
It is my very first appearance anywhere. Yeah, of any podcast.
Okay.
We'll have to bring you back on, Ryan.
Did a great job, Ryan. Yeah. Thanks for taking out the time. We know this is a work day for you.
Yeah. It is, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And thank you so much for watching our podcast. We're so thankful that you have found us in this way. We hope it's meaningful for you and that you like it and that you'll come back. Just know that you're always welcome to join us either in person or virtually here at Methodist Temple to worship. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Pastor Podcast with Randy and Andy. We hope you'll join us next week. We see Christ in you.